You're in LA, right?
I am in. Where are you guys?
Okay, we are in Akron, Ohio, all three of us.
Oh, wow. Very
Yep.
LeBron coded.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's us.
Wow.
We're all his three brothers.
Oh, my God. That's a shocking development.
It is. I know Tony looks like it, but yeah, you would never guess the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
We come from a family of podcasters. The basketball thing was kind of a fluke.
Yeah.
My great-great-grandfather, started the podcasting business, and we all apprenticed.
Toiled in the podcast mines.
Yeah, LeBron was the first to rebel and get out.
It really worked out. He's quite good at what he does. I don't want to go out too far on a limb there, but I think he's going to make it.
He keeps inviting us to games, and sometimes it's just busy.
Yeah, I don't have time for his little hobby.
Are you recording from bed right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he
Nice.
does.
It's a very casual way to record.
I need to be relaxed,
We need the podcast to take off so Seth can afford a chair.
He also has no legs. Hello and welcome to Unwatchables, the podcast that exists in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. I am Marc Dottavio.
I'm Seth Troyer.
And today we are joined by the very funny writer and director Zack Bornstein for two movies that answer the question, what if the Care Bears were an Antichrist? The animated films of Alberto Vázquez are full of cuddly talking animals straight out of Disney or Nickelodeon. They're also full of graphic disembowelings, human-looking genitalia, and what might be clinical depression. We'll be discussing his two unrelentingly bleak magnum opuses, 2015's coming-of-age horror drama Birdboy, The Forgotten Children, and 2022's epic splatter war film, Unicorn Wars. Here to help us ride the unicorn is Zack Bornstein. He is an Emmy-nominated WGA and Peabody Award-winning writer for shows like Saturday Night Live, Apple's Shrinking and Strange Planet, Netflix's The Good Cop, Comedy Central's My Least Favorite Thing, and many, many more. He also has plenty of directing credits on shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he has finally worked his way up the ladder to our podcast. So, Zack, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, ride the unicorn.
Yeah, I love also you slipped in the Kamala reference right at the top there. Very elegant.
Very timely. We've been holding on to that for a long time.
Yeah, beautiful content. I don't know when this will come out, but that is hot news right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
fresh off the press.
Hopefully a week from now, everybody will still remember.
Yeah, we're recording this 1 minute after Biden's announcement that he dropped out.
Yeah, anyone listening now, who knows who? We might have gone through 2 or 3 other nominees by that point.
Yeah, anything is possible in this topsy-turvy world.
Yeah, but here we are to take a little bit of time off from the crazy political climate right now to just bask in some nice, fun children's entertainment.
Cartoons.
And Zack, going through your credits is actually a pretty daunting task. So I am curious, what is currently taking up your time the most right now?
Mostly prepping for this podcast. There was a lot of homework you guys sent, a lot of prep.
I'm so
working
sorry.
with my handlers and the media training team to get ready. I'm heading back to. We're going to be working on Shrinking season 3 very shortly, which I'm very excited about. I love the show dearly. It's an incredible group of people, so I'm very fortunate to be on that. And then I have a few things in development that I'm not allowed to talk about, but one of them's an animated movie that's very, very, very different from these movies, but it was fun. Being kind of neck deep in the animation process right now and watching these kind of delightfully horrific films.
Oh, so you'll have kind of an insider's view actually working with animation now.
Yeah, but significantly less disemboweling, significantly less child penis in my film.
Not none, though. Just less?
I can't say,
Okay.
but I can say that the
Your lawyers
ratio
are-
is heavy in one direction.
Okay. Because you said you weren't going to spoil anything, but
That's right in the trailer, man. Right on the poster. It's
Yeah.
These are some gory flicks, and they really do the blood
Yeah.
splatter quite viscerally, even though it's animation. I don't know if it's the combo of the. I mean, it must be they have a good like realistic splattery sounds, and they just do like a very gushy animation style. So you really do feel it.
Yeah, if you're gonna have this much of it, you better be good at drawing it, I suppose, or
Yeah,
whatever
you
it is they're
better-
doing.
yeah,
Have
in
that
movies
color
like
red
this,
pencil on lock.
for these kind of movies, I mean, that's like your bread and butter, I guess. If you get the blood splatter wrong, that's going to lose
Mhm.
half of it right there. But I was curious then, because I send out a list of movies that we haven't gotten to yet, just to give ideas for guests, and you picked these out. Was it kind of just a point at something and pick option, or did you know anything about these, or was it just the titles?
No, it was literally because I'm working on an animated movie, and I wanted to, and I'm trying to watch as many animated movies as possible. And these ones, right now, I love that there's like kind of a big push in animation for interesting styles. Like if you watch like the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, it's
I
really,
just watched that. Yeah.
dude, the style is so cool. It, like all looks like kind of like doodles and like notebook kind of vibe, like you're in like school kind of doodles. Or you even watch like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, or like Mitchell's versus the Machines. Like I think there's a huge push now, even in big commercial films like Inside Out 2. Not that those other ones were, but like even like something like that, they're trying weird, interesting styles throughout it. So I think there's a big push right now for like cool, interesting animation. And I watched the trailers for these, and the look is so cool. It's like got that kind of like, it's almost like pastel kind of hand drawn backgrounds, but with almost like kind of like Disney-esque like 2D characters on top of it.
Yeah,
So
and
very
2D
cool style.
animation too, which obviously you're not getting a lot of that, at least in big budget releases these days. Certainly, you can find it on TV and things. I'm assuming yours is going to be 2D, or
Ours is
No,
3D.
3D, okay.
But still, I mean, like even in some of these big movies, they do kind of like a 2D style at some points. Like there's nothing 2D about like the Spider-Verse movies, but that's kind of trying to emulate like the 2D comic book look. That's so cool.
Yeah, I love that that's taken hold more, because if anything, I felt like it was getting a little ridiculous with like the kind of uncanny valley. Like it was getting obvious at a certain point. Like Pixar was getting more and more like every hair on their head is detailed or something, and it wasn't actually satisfying, because it's like, well, which is it? Is it trying to replicate reality, or is it a cartoon? Actually, as like, we are kind of wanting cartoons. I don't know. It's seeming like the public is leaning towards that ever since the Spider-Verse, and I'm pretty happy about it. My only thing is like it only teases at like actually like what I would want, which is hand-drawn animation or clay animation stuff, all that. But it's close. It's better. It's closer. It's more impressionistic.
Yeah, I love it. It's very cool. Also, it had kind of a. Did you guys ever play the game Hollow Knight?
No,
No.
not that one.
Oh, it's this like incredible video game that it's like it kind of has a similar style to Birdboy. If you just like Google image Hollow Knight, and you might see memes all the time about the sequel, which is called Silk Song, which they've been saying is going to come out for like the last like 6 years. But it's really one of the most beautiful games ever made, and it has kind of this like haunting 2D on top of like kind of like almost like mythical pastel gorgeous backgrounds, with like very like kind of like visceral bloody gore animation.
Oh, that does sound a lot like this.
No, yeah, video
Yeah.
games came to mind when I watched this for sure, and I think there's a lot of like kind of indie game indie games that look like this.
Yeah, Hollow Knight's
like
a big
it's
indie
like
game, I think.
evil. It's like evil Animal Crossing or something. Like both of these movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and-
guy's I looked it up. The guy's a comic book artist, so he's like and writer. He's like he was like a graphic novel guy before these, and I think one of them actually was adapted. The first one was adapted.
Yeah, Birdboy. I get, and it definitely feels like a passion project. It feels like his baby for sure. That there's a lot that goes into the plot and all the different characters. There's so many characters that you're kind of not used to, like that kind of an ensemble in an animated movie like this. And it does have like some complicated, almost fantasy lore going on. And I did look up the comic. You can find pages of it online, but they're not translated, unfortunately, because I was like hoping I could grab the graphic novel or something. It does have a really great style. It almost, I don't know, it almost reminded me. And yeah, my partner was saying that it was kind of had a moment on Tumblr and stuff, like when it was coming out, just like images of it, which it kind of has this. It kind of reminds me of like Invader Zim or something, like that kind of emo, like a certain kind of emo art to it almost. I don't know why it makes me think of that, but
yeah, we should mention too,
like
for anyone
cutesy
listening,
but depressive look to everything.
Hell yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, these are I think Unicorn Wars was a Spanish-French co-production, but they're both in Spanish. And I watched both of them with subtitles. I know there are dubbed versions floating around there. Did anybody watch either of these in English,
No.
or were they with subtitles?
I'm a subtitle guy.
Okay, me too. And it's sometimes a shame when, especially with animated works too, because it's always like my eyes are getting a little distracted away from drinking in the animation quite as much as I want to. But I am kind of a hardline subtitles person too.
I've been even like English shows I watch with subtitles. I don't know if it's like I just have bad speakers or like anything with even like a gentle British accent. I'm reading that thing.
Oh yeah, I watched pretty much the entire filmography of Mike Leigh with subtitles on because I cannot understand those people. But so yeah, that's something to know about these going in, and that Alberto Vázquez is this graphic novelist who has other things too. But I did not realize until afterwards that Birdboy was based on his own graphic novel, but it's also technically the follow-up to a 13-minute short, which I did not get the chance to watch. Did you, Seth? Because I know we were talking about hopefully getting an opportunity.
No, I spent most of my time just drinking in his website. He has all these comics and like little trailers for video games that he's working on too. I was just really into that. I didn't find the short film though. No,
drinking in a website's a great phrase. I'm gonna steal.
I was drinking it.
Drinking
it's been a while since I drank in a website.
Dude, I just go to google.com and I just drink in that website, man.
I'm always apping these days, but not websiting.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, well, you eat the apps and you drink in the... Anyways.
That's right.
So, yeah, and man, it's so hard to do a plot synopsis for this. I don't even want to try because there are so many different things going on. Each one is very weird. It starts out, I guess, showing us that this is some kind of a post-nuclear apocalypse world that we're in.
Well,
the opening voiceover is like, blood is our law. In the garbage, we seek our future. And like, not everything with a body is alive. It was just like from the get-go. It's just like, it was incredible. Like, I just love I don't know. I was a fan of these. They just came out swinging and it just hit.
Yeah.
Cuddly, like
I put that on my Grindr profile. That's the first thing you see.
It's working great. Yeah. No, it's right from the get-go. Yeah. There is like it's not really even though it's a flashback, it's not really holding your hand. It is from the perspective of, even in the context of this world, a specific group, which is the surviving rats. There's like a few different factions in this island world. Yeah, it just all takes place on an island surrounded by, just like out in the middle of nowhere. And everybody's working on this factory, or like it's like a nuclear reactor, and then it explodes and it sets off everything, like the whole plot of this. Everything's just kind of destroyed. But then there's also, you wonder about how it all works, because then they fast forward into the future a little bit, and there's definitely some like rat characters that are picking at the debris, and it's very post-apocalyptic. But then there's some more privileged characters. There's
the school apparently that they all go to.
Yeah, it's like a really nice private school. So there is this sort of disparagement going on of the factions, which is interesting and not really fleshed out, but I don't know. That develops Birdboy's girlfriend, which again is just so much to talk about when it comes to the plot on this.
Yeah, we just
not
keep meeting
expecting
new
it.
characters that
Mhm.
we might later on learn kind of know each other from the past. Sometimes they don't. It really feels kind of segmented to me in that way. And so Bird Boy is his own thing, but it's mainly the one with these little children cute animals that I think is the closest to kind of what Unicorn Wars is doing, and what I think people will find kind of almost weirdest about these movies is that they look like, these are characters you might see in, like, I don't know, My Little Pony or something. That's
Mhm.
it's very deliberately evoking this kind of a kid friendly style, and very much is not is not that.
Yeah, immediately they had like the dog humping, and like you see it's like human penis, and like the baby Jesus doll is crying blood, and like it's so cute, and like but then and there's some great jokes in it. Like there's that little clock robot who asks a snail a question, and then it just cuts to the snail and just froths at the mouth silently. Like there's some
Oh
really
man.
funny jokes, but yeah, it's definitely a very cute horrific style, and it kind of caught me off guard because I didn't realize how like R-rated it was going to be.
Yeah, it kind of
From the
starts the expectation, which I think sometimes is almost too gratuitous, not in a way that's like I can't handle it. It's just in a way that it becomes so predictable with some of these movies. I guess if you're watching both these movies back to back, you kind of get that, but there is sort of this precedent of here's a really cute inflatable duck character who talks and
Mhm.
he's adorable and he's talking about his life and everything, but once you get trained into the logic of the movie, you know at some point his mom's going to get shot in the head, or like he's going to develop some sort of schizophrenia, and it's just all about that expectation of like here's a cute bunny, something really awful is going to happen to that cute bunny, you just know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I guess that's going to be my central question about both of these movies, and I think more so actually with Unicorn Wars. But is there an extent where this guy is kind of trolling us a little bit, or is maybe getting off a little too much on rubbing our faces in these cute little doe-eyed innocent animals and just feeling terrible for them, and then going through encountering all of this horrible cruelty? And I'm interested where everybody lands on that, because that's something I struggled with both of these, because they do seem very straight faced. It's not like it's just a joke on the audience, but there still is. I mean, what is this guy's problem? Is what I'm asking. Like,
The
is this guy
director?
okay?
I think it was just honestly, I think he's fine. I think it was just that it's a comedy, and that's what the comedy was. Like the comedy is, hey, can you like what if we took cuddly bears and cuddly unicorns and had them like live Apocalypse Now? Like what if Apocalypse
Mhm.
Now with the My Little Pony characters? Like, and then the comedy just comes from the more straight faced it is, the funnier it is because of just the way the characters are. So I didn't feel to me like a prank or anything. It just felt like it was that was the deliberate comedy of the movie.
But
Yeah.
did it ever, like, I mean, did you ever? I felt a little depressed during parts after these.
Oh, for sure, you
Uh,
should. If you don't feel I mean, it's like
yeah.
a war movie, and like people like killing their own
Mhm.
parents, and like there's like weird little incest bits, and there was like just the brutal nature of war and like killing people to like improve your own survival, and like the whole coup and the unicorn wars. Like it was brutal shit. So I feel like you're supposed to feel bad, but
Mhm.
then every now and then you snap out and just go. And they do this on purpose too, of like then they have like the cuddly bears giggling and snuggling and eating the colorful rainbow slugs or whatever those things are. So I think they're playing with that contrast.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to get all like, I don't want to make it like a thesis or academic or something, but I think at its best, it is trying to really get at dark, depressive, intense feelings. And in some ways, at its worst, maybe it's kind of a cheap trick to have the characters, rather than having them be humans or something in these situations. You could have made a fantasy like adventure movie like this that has these depressive elements with humans, but there's something that is like it does give you a shortcut to this sort of, I don't know, expectation. There's always this expectation of innocence, expectation of good intentions, or hope and things, and it gets squished. Like, there's this idea in these, it feels like that the world around you is very indifferent. These seem to take place in worlds that are very hostile in general and indifferent towards you. And nature is both beautiful and very, very, very dangerous. And people are sometimes very appearing to love you, and then they will rip your heart out, sometimes literally. I don't know. I think it does work well here, even though it is a little bit of like a gimmicky sort of trick that he's using sometimes.
The gimmick works for me, because I think
It works
that
for
would have
me.
been a pretty horrifying watch with like photorealistic humans. Like, all of that would have been pretty. There would have been nothing funny about it. It just would have been just violent, horrifying. Like, the plot and everything is pretty horrifying. That I think without any of the silliness, it would have been a tough watch. But he also leaned into like the animals. Like, it wasn't like it was just a human story and then turn them into animals at the last second. Like, even in Unicorn Wars, the unicorns, the way they attack is with the horn. They like spear people through the stomach, and like they kick like a horse, and the bears all have retractable claws. So like they're using the whole the whole meal of them as animals. So that part makes it feel less like a cheap trick to me, and more like, oh, they're actually using it all.
I agree. Yeah, I like that he commits to the bit of it all. That
very much.
It clearly comes from a person who is interested. I mean, it seems like a fantasy. I don't know, like he reads fantasy novels, into anime. Both these at certain points reminded me of Akira. Just sort of out of that like aspect, that they both involve these like cartoonish, like innocent children characters almost, and they become, like, by the end, like these superhero but depressive, like killing what they love, like monsters almost, like in Akira. Like Birdboy is in this is kind of, he feels like kind of like a little like cartoony Batman character almost, but he's so tragic, and he also like still have trouble explaining exactly what's going on with the shadow birds and everything. He has this like shadow self, and that's following him. I don't know. Yeah, he's like this like weird chosen one / he can like save the world but destroy it. I love that it goes to this epic place that I was not anticipating at all.
If anything, I feel like this should have been longer, because it's only like 75 minutes. And there's so much stuff here that a lot of times I felt like I was watching like something that could have been a TV series, or, maybe there's more in the graphic novel. And I think that also might be part of it being this supposedly a follow-up to a short, which if I would definitely would have watched that ahead of time if I would have realized it, because there were times where I kind of felt like I was getting a glimpse of something bigger that I was kind of missing out on little pieces. And I think my main criticism of the movie is just that it moves so fast that I never necessarily got like sucked into one thread. Like, one example is we do find out that I think Sandra is the name of the kind of main like bunny of the kids. And we get this quick flashback late in the movie to her becoming friends with Birdboy. And you're like, oh, they knew each other. And I think a lot that happens like in the climax really depends on kind of an emotional investment in the two of them, or at least it would resonate more if we had gotten more of that. But
I mean, I thought that
feel
montage
like there was a
was
sense of
amazing. Like,
it was just so quick,
and you
like,
can
wasn't
imply
enough.
so much that's going on in there, which is just like teenage love. They're having a teenage fling, summer fling, that they're in love and everything. I don't think I need big scenes to flesh it out, really. I thought it was pretty
It just felt more
economical.
like it was giving me the information without giving me the room to like actually get involved with them as characters. But I don't know, where are you landing on this?
Yeah, I think,
Zach?
I mean, lengthwise, I think it would have been tough to go much longer for me. If it was a TV series, would have been great because I feel like seeing that in like half-hour chunks would be nice. I don't like after an hour and a half of that kind of like brutal style, I was like, okay, it's time to wrap it up. Like,
I agree.
you know, but I get what you're saying. I think I know your podcast often, you know, you're like it's more piling on movies that don't work out so well. And this one was pretty damn. These ones were pretty, in my opinion. I really liked them a lot. But I think if there was one thing, I think especially for Birdboy, was that it felt. I agree. It felt a little bit too sprawling because I felt like it lost the metaphor a little bit. I was like, because at times it was like, oh, is this all like about a drug addiction? Because there was a few different characters that like were doing pills or were injecting drugs, and it was like, oh, it's all about like that. But then there was also kind of like a class warfare type thing of like going into the wrong neighborhood and then being and like people misreading each other and like not understanding. Was it like a parenting metaphor because you had the bird dad and like assuming the shadow self of the dad? So like some of the like I went online, I was like trying to figure it out, and it was people were just saying it's like all like adolescent and just like the teenage experience and like the darkness of that. So I get that kind of is like a good overall bucket for it, but I agree with you, Mark, that it did feel like very sprawling. That like maybe like that I felt like in Unicorn Wars it was a much more like you're with like a couple key characters, you know the stakes, you know the like you know the plot lines, you know what story, like you know what the central story is. Whereas Birdboy felt more, actually it felt more comic booky, where it was like in each comic you're like jumping between stories a little bit more and like there's like more threads to follow.
Yeah, I see. I agree that maybe Unicorn Wars is more sparse and therefore can focus on things. I just think it's less. Uh, it winds up being more commonplace to me by the end of it, and this is more unique. I like the sprawling, like getting buried by all the layers of a lot of, again, like I go back to the word lore. It does feel like there's some lore and some real fleshed out stuff here that I'm not necessarily concerned about how it all fits together or why it's all here. I think it is like, I do feel like it's a living, breathing world that works. And I don't necessarily need to have it all pieced together. And it doesn't even need to have like one greater metaphor. I think there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of intersecting characters. I could see it benefiting from more length, but I don't know. At the same time, I just feel like making certain aspects of it less opaque would just kind of, now you've explained how some fantasy aspect of this world works, or how this guy is connected to this guy that I just kind of don't care about. Yeah.
Well, I actually agree with a lot of what you're saying in that, as I did like this more than Unicorn Wars, and because a lot of it was because there is so much more variety to what's going on, and so you have like the little vignette with the character who is always talking about how he has to provide for his mother, and we finally see her, and she's like this pig who's lying in bed, who seems completely comatose but is still talking somehow, and it turns out to be this giant, or well, regular sized spider that crawls out of her mouth and somehow is living off of the sun injecting some kind of drug into the medicine into the veins.
Which I thought was an amazing direct
crazy
kind of metaphor for, like, I don't know, whether it's drug addiction or someone who has like intense mental problems that you have to deal with. They aren't themselves when they aren't themselves, and that was just a very direct visual metaphor.
Well, and that part is just so creepy and weird and surreal, and something that I'll remember. And it's, even though I think that there's too many kind of scattered ideas like that for one to like really take hold to where it could take me to, I still liked that, and that the humor is more a little more overt here, where, you know, kind of Unicorn Wars has the one, you know, joke bit, whatever you want to call it, that it's doing the whole way through. But this has stuff like that alarm clock that is somehow one of the main characters' siblings, but also an alarm clock, and just the way that he talked
It was
and
so funny.
stumbles into the yeah.
Also,
I was
the
laughing
backstory
all
on the
through that.
inflatable duck was so funny. Just like
the inflatable duck that eats inflatable fish.
Ugh, that was so good. I mean, I honestly, I really loved them both for different reasons. It kind of reminded me of like, just like Birdboy was just more sprawling, more weird, more up for interpretation, more like how do you individually interpret it? Kind of felt more like Mulholland Drive, whereas like Unicorn Wars is more like this is a coherent, more commercial story. Not that it's like super commercial, but like it's just a more like you could like do like, you know, a Save the Cat to Unicorn Wars, and it like hits all the like key plot points. It's more like a Blue Velvet, like if we're doing David Lynch comparisons. Like it's just, and so it's like more, it's just like a taste thing. If like people like more sprawling, weird, up to your interpretation kind of vibe, or more like here's a coherent story with like very coherent plot beats. And but the thing is, they're both such weird, delightful styles that I think it was fun back to back too.
Yeah, they're definitely kind of complementary in that way. And I don't actually wish this was longer. When I saw the runtime, I was like, oh, good. Like, that's the kind of length something like this should be. And Unicorn Wars really wore me down after a while. It's more like maybe if it had just, you know, taken out a couple threads, saved those for some other ideas or something, and focused in a little more. But visually, I think this also gets a lot more opportunity to be more varied and dynamic in that way too, because there's kind of a big difference between the Birdboy little stretches and the stuff that looks more like it's from a kid's cartoon, and then the rats in the junkyard. They all seem kind of distinct, and this has a lot more of kind of impressionistic you know, imagination, which is what I really love in animation, especially 2D animation. So I want to make sure we definitely give credit for just how these movies in general look. I think that whatever you think about this guy's, you know, very specific, distinct vision, that these movies look great, especially this one. I think that, like, this is just really good animation.
Yeah. It's
so
especially those like hard to.
Oh yeah, go.
I was just gonna say it's so hard to make something that's unique now, just because everything's been done. That to like do something that actually feels like, oh, that's that person's style. It's so fucking hard, and he found it.
Yeah, I mean there are things that work, and there are things that you can expound upon, and I think one of them is using animation as a means of like being psychedelic, which definitely happens in this one. It's like a very gothy psychedelia, but it's like like there's all these kind of magical visions that Birdboy has, which again, Birdboy's kind of this like chosen one or something, and he's like all the like swirling, really inky black visions that he has are really stunning and very imaginative, like not just generically trippy or something, which I appreciate, because I agree with Marc that like it's the thing about animation, it's like you can do anything. Like you can make him all of a sudden like burst into a bunch of million pieces or something, you know, like why would you not dazzle our eyes? And you're not bound by earthly rules, you know, and it just doesn't seem to happen as much as you would think it would happen with animation.
Yeah. I really like when he took the pill, or like when they got shot and they would cut to inside and you see his heart. They did that with both Birdboy and Birdman. Was that his father? That was so cool. Like I feel like that's such a unique. It's almost like Cinderella Man, that boxing movie. They did that a little bit. Like when he would get punched, they would like cut inside and show you his organs going like just like splashing around and getting absolutely walloped, and you just feel it so much more viscerally.
Doesn't Three Kings do something like that? When I
haven't seen it.
I think when people, oh god, it's so great. You should check it out. Yeah, it is like it like follows the bullet inside of them. It's pretty much what you're describing.
Yeah, that's it. That was just like so visceral, and I love that. Also, the shadow becoming real, that was really cool. Like when he goes into like I think it was the lighthouse, and he sees it the second time, and he sees his shadow, and then the shadow grows on the wall, and then the shadow kind of like emerges into like is physicalized. It was very cool.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff bursting uh, around the edges in this one like that.
Yeah, they even did little moments like someone just like one of the two like cops randomly shoots a bird, and then it's just like you think, oh, he just shot a bird, but then it just like pans over and you see just like three like little baby birds that are just waiting for food, and it's
Oh,
it's
God.
like 2 seconds, but it makes it so much more tragic. It's just like great little details like that all over both movies.
And we have
Yeah.
this rat father and son who we follow around for a while, who run into another rat father
Oh,
and
that was
son.
brutal.
And I think it's just one of the fathers and one of the sons survives. And
Yeah, it's like, and that was so funny. Of like the two dads are fighting, and the kids don't know what to do, so they just both start fighting. And yeah, one of each. When they revealed that one of each survived, and now they're a partnership, it was like very sad, very devastating. But then it was also funny because it's just like rats on heaps of garbage and like very silly looking, very colorful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
the
was
other
very
thing that
effective.
gets exploited here, which is there's like the juxtaposition of gore and like cartoonish animals, but it seems in both these movies, one of the other things that gets exploited is like you said, like just a quick, even in that quick little scene where they talk about where he shoots a bird, like it's not just that shoots a cute little bird, we also get the shot of the children that are obviously going to starve to death. Or yeah, there's the son and the father that are now separated, and like there's all these layers, which definitely they're easy ways of really getting at the heartstrings of the audience.
yes, stuff
And I
like
think
with
he
the mama
handles them
bird.
in proper ways, like intense ways.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, I started to get just a little suspicious at the level of cruelty of like there's a certain line you could tip over sometimes into it being a little bit sadistic.
Yeah,
almost
or
to
how
the
much it
viewer.
really or how much it really serves the greater purpose when there is, like in a movie like this where there are so many layers and so many characters, and it seems like he's really trying to tell a really involved fantasy story like this. It does seem like every once in a while, like having these asides just for the sake of getting the gore in is kind of it is kind of weird, and it is something like it feels like a weird compulsion he has. It does. Yeah, like I wonder, is he okay? Yeah, every once in a while, which I think is kind of a cool thing to feel from an artist. Like I don't
I
know,
feel
like
like
a
that's what you want to feel
genuine
from an
troubled
artist.
feeling. Like I like, ooh, like this guy's intense. Like this guy is maybe troubled, even though even if he's not, but he does have like a real unhinged quality to him.
No offense to your hometown, but when people seem too well, then they make Space Jam 2. You need to be a little unwell to make something incredible.
It's true.
Yeah, talk about this sad and disturbing. But
Go back to
yeah, I would much rather watch this. And also, if Space Jam 2 was this length, boy, that would have helped too. But
No, Space Jam 2.
do we have a Space Jam 2 apologist here? Okay.
Dude, I think it's one of the best flicks that's ever been. I haven't seen it, but from just the posters, I'm telling you, this is one of my top flicks. My apologies to anyone I may have offended with these comments. My apologies to LeBron James and Savannah James, to Bronny, to everyone who may have been impacted by my comments.
I would like to apologize to anybody with as much money as LeBron James. Please be nice to us. Well, let me. I'll kind of make this my final thought here, and then we can move on to Unicorn Wars, because I think there's still kind of a lot of discussion we can have that will bring both these movies into the conversation. But I definitely like going from having seen Unicorn Wars first and actually twice before getting to this one. This was kind of a relief to me of seeing a little more looseness and creativity and variation throughout. I think went a long way, and being shorter, of course, and having more ideas, even if we disagree about exactly the level of how much they are able to fully realize each one. So yeah, my main reservation was just still kind of a sense of wondering why I was being put through some of the more unpleasant things, as well as just a basic kind of concept of if things get a little too overloaded, sometimes they can come across as a little undercooked. But for the most part, this was a pleasant, well, let's say unpleasant surprise for me. But I don't think any of us are going to unwatch it, and I'm not going to either. But anything that you wanted to add in, Seth, and we'll let Zach have the last word.
Well, I don't know. It's a typical our inverses. I like getting buried by nonsense sometimes, and I ask why a lot less than you do. And that went a long way with this one, I think. I'm just impressed, and I'm excited about what this guy has in him. I hope we get more films, especially in this vein. I see this above Unicorn Wars. We're about to get into Unicorn Wars, and I do think that does different things that are really interesting and also pointing to some promise for this guy. But I am curious about this bent, which is this sort of epic storytelling aspect of him, which I love seeing, and interesting to see that like outside of anime. Which again, this like a lot of this reminded me of anime and anime's sort of grasp on fantasy and all that. I was really impressed and surprised I hadn't heard hardly anything about it. Maybe it is just literally the fucking subtitles upset people, I guess. I don't know. Like, it just really hadn't heard about this at all. So I hope people watch this.
So Zach, sounds like you were happy with how your pick came out.
Dude, hated every fucking second of it. No, it was great. I thought it was very good. I would not unwatch it to hit the premise of the show. I thought it was great. I can imagine why we haven't heard a ton about it. It's a very niche audience. It's like animated films tend to be, which I don't think they should be, but they tend to be marketed towards families. And this is definitely not a family film. And then also you have the like indie subtitles, international, like just like all the like kind of check boxes of like commercial hit things that are gonna make it hard to be a commercial hit. But I mean, this seems like the kind of movie that would clean up at festivals, and I would recommend to friends if they're into this kind of weird stuff. Definitely it can be a brutal watch. It's not the most, at times it's pretty, all these things that we're saying are like fun, like the, getting the way they showed him getting shot through the heart. Yeah, he got shot through the heart, and that's like an unpleasant thing. It's a lot of like parent death and a lot of child death and a lot of like a lot of drug use. It's some tough subjects, we'll call them. But a lot of like realistic violence with the character. So I can see why Kurt, may not have hit the American market huge, but I did really like it. Oh, there was a couple of lines I loved. I wrote down. One was one of the cops said, "I dropped out of school and now I have a gun." Just thought that was a great, funny line.
So good.
Yeah, man. Speaking of Akron.
Yeah,
but go on.
The inflatable duck of like, I used to have a family at the PVC pond, but now life is hell. And has a sob story, but is he's lying because they're doing the evil eyes and stuff. It was just so good. Oh, I think I mentioned this before, but one of the characters, the parent goes, "This baby Jesus doll is crying blood because of you." So good.
And yeah, like you said earlier, yeah, they're shaming the daughter for being out too late or whatever, being late to school, and they're like making her guilty about the Jesus doll, and then they're also like praising their son who looks like he's like he's in a fetish gear, but he's also a dog, and he's humping his dad's leg, and but he says that he wants to be an engineer, so they're like, we love him.
So funny. Yeah, that he only barks, and then it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he goes, an engineer.
And they're all like, oh, see, he's better than you. Which was just like, oh my god.
I do like they never explain what Jonathan's deal is. He's just Jonathan. He's a dog in a fetish mask who's also their son.
What more do you want, man?
I don't want any more
Not
than
everything
that.
has to be neatly wrapped up with a bow.
Even fetish dogs.
I think Jonathan
Yeah.
should have his own spin-off, but
It's like Doubt. The
Yeah.
second act of the movie is the podcast you have about the movie.
Well, and speaking of the second half of the podcast, apparently this movie was, got him enough capital that I feel like he was able to indulge in an even bigger vision with Unicorn Wars. Like, if besides the actual similarities the movie has to Apocalypse Now, like you can kind of see him like shooting for the rafters with this one. That like it is longer, it's a little, in ways it's more ambitious, just in the scope of its story, even though there's definitely a sprawl to Birdboy. And but it is different. Like you were saying, this is a much more like focused story, and I think the concept is easier to grasp here because basically all the characters have this same like little kids as little cute animals in them. And so we get like the full variety of the little cute teddy bears, either getting their leg amputated or having an infected, like oozing foot. Or I want to start us right off with the little uncircumcised dicks in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You got to start with that.
Yeah.
All the Care Bears in the Care Bear army that are fighting against the unicorns have little uncircumcised penises.
Yeah.
It made me so sad. The brothers, and then the brother, they are sleeping in the same bed, and then one of them pees the bed, and then the one just quietly is like, "Hey, let's just wrap up the sheets, and you'll sneak out. Everything's fine." And then as he's sneaking out, the other brother turns on the lights and makes fun of him in front of the entire army barracks. That was devastating.
Brutal.
Yeah,
that's actually one of the most like weirdly upsetting scenes in the whole movie. And like it's not like they're ripping each other's guts out, but it is this real like betrayal happening and real like humiliation.
It was just it's just so manipulative that the Bluey was his name. It's just like so horrifically manipulative, and then you find out later why. I thought that was brilliant. I was not expecting at all. I don't want to spoil it, but the reveal of how he became so jealous and horrible, and then what the backstory with the mom.
Right, which does point to the center of the movie, which are these there's these two brother Care Bears that are in the military of this Care Bear army who are fighting unicorns. The whole thing is they want to kill the unicorns, they hate the unicorns. And yeah, these two brothers, there's the pink one who seems like the nice, lovable one, and Bluey, who at least at first seems together and like very loving even towards his brother, is clearly very troubled, to say the least, and sadistic, and has these delusions. There's like a religion in the movie. Of course, like this is where it starts to spiral. Like at first you think that if this is the first introduction to him, you think it's just going to be gross Care Bears exploding and with guts and everything. But there's like a religion around all this, and there's a prophecy. If one of the bears were to drink the blood of the last unicorn, they would become this god or something. So it gets deep. It's whack.
And that's the thing, when it has stuff like the bedwetting scene and the flashbacks and everything that are like deadly serious and just very sad and even upsetting. And but then it also has their little uncut cocks, and they're in the they're in this love camp.
Dwelling on the cocks.
Well, I just wonder with details like that, and then the whole motto is honor, pain, cuddles. Like that seems like very jokey stuff juxtaposed with this other stuff that literally was just seeming like it's trying to bum you out.
It seems like you're really set on the bear penis, though. Did your TV like pause there?
Well, okay. The first time that I saw this, that is what I was kind of like. I just couldn't believe this movie. This was so weird. I was totally unprepared for what it was going to be. I was shown it against my will. I didn't know what it was. And
then
the first
for weeks afterwards, you just kept drawing it over and over. You wake up in the middle of the night, you just have to do these charcoal drawings of the bear penis
everywhere. It was like in Superbad when he's drawing all of the penises. And I mean, I just want to keep emphasizing the teddy bear penises here, but that's just an example of the weird
very,
jokey stuff in here that I just tonally I didn't know what to do with a lot of that.
I mean, I think that was the comedy of it, but I was impressed with the speed of the narrative. Like, just like a lot of story, like a full sweeping war movie from like basic training through like going after that first group of men and then finding all those bears, torn to bits and all messed up and burning their bodies and all the horrific things, and then all that, and then going further, getting lost, all the backstory, coming back, and then his kind of like Breaking Bad arc that like kind of came out of nowhere with like 20 minutes left to go. Like it was a full movie. Like there was a lot of plot points in it.
And that
they were
sequence,
not wasting time.
Yeah. And another one of the more kind of disturbing sequences is, after they have their late night trip out where they're eating these like rainbow colored grubs
that was sick.
Have them go into full hallucinations, and leads to one of them like stabbing his own brother to death because he's hallucinating that he's a monster. And then they find that other brother, hanging from a tree.
I mean, it was like real horrific war movie shit.
Yeah.
Like they really did their research on it, I felt like. And when they had like the infected foot and the close-ups on that, and like all the mosquito bites and the sergeant going crazy and cutting the priest, and then the priest blowing himself up with the grenade, and like, I don't know, there was it felt like you were watching Apocalypse Now, but with cuddly bears. It worked.
Yeah, and because I've used the term straight face before, but people just hear us describing this, and it sounds, like it has an outrageous tone to it. But it is like it's very somber, and I think like it actually is trying to be, intense and sweep you in on that story level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially again, like what I was saying with Birdboy, one of the big things he really pushes in is that he really tries to stick you in the gut with the whole family thing, like almost to the point where there's portions where he is trying to make you think, like, I don't know if you've had a breakup of a family or a divorce. There's like stretches of this that are about divorce, and then there's like, you and your sibling and how there's jealousy. There's also like a really Bluey, in all the flashbacks, that they're handled really interestingly, because they're not handled in this traditional sort of like, oh, mom just loved what's the pink one's name? I don't remember the pink one's name, but the other brother more, and that's like the whole thing why Bluey is so fucked up, supposedly, like in his own narrative, which that's the whole thing. It starts to unravel that what's going on is actually just in his head, is his narrative of the whole thing and his perspective on the whole thing, where it's like he's looking in at his mom and the other son having a good time, reading books together, gardening. But the whole thing is like what's going on in each of these scenes. He's distant looking in. He's always like away, apart. He's isolating himself. Like he is, because he's convinced of this whole thing, which I thought was actually kind of psychologically realistic. It is something that is only in his head in that situation, which is what happens. Sometimes we do create these narratives that we believe that are not actually true. Like it seems at every point his mother loves him just as much as the other brother.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Colonel Kurtz of it all, and like just like the creating the narrative in your own head and going insane. Yeah. Just you watch him go insane over the course of the movie and be charming and be manipulative. It was a much more complex. It was a very complex movie. I felt like it was very good.
And Tubby, by the way, is what they call him throughout the whole movie.
Of course.
So
lovingly named
we can all
Tubby.
Just jump onto that. Yeah. But I mean, I was a little. It sounds like I was a little more negative on this one. You guys were, and my story is basically that. Again, I kind of watched this at a friend's movie night, having no idea what it was, and was like, "What the hell is this?" And it like really bummed me out. And I immediately put it on our list of episode ideas. So I have no one but myself to blame that I had to sit through it a second time.
Yeah, thanks, Marc.
But it did make me better able to appreciate, like the stylized creation story at the beginning. And, the stuff with the unicorns is kind of feels like a kind of different animation mood than everything else is. And again, also very sad when we get lots of these unicorns getting, stabbed and shot. And, I eventually started to feel kind of overwhelmed by all of that stuff.
I think that
and
was
maybe
the
I'm
point,
just,
and it was so fast too. Like the story moved so fast. It was also just so brilliant of like taking on like religious war, of like how like orthodoxy and just like blind hate leads to war. It's like that old like they like the they have this like holy book that they have, but like then you see the pink bear and the wounded unicorn like having a relationship at the end, and like showing they're capable of love and peace, but they just believe their religion so wholeheartedly that they have to they need that to cling on. And you even have the generals and stuff saying we need the war to hold on to power, like as long as like we have that, we're still in power. So it really goes after, I feel like, also like military industrial complex type shit. And like I don't know, it hit a lot. But with what I loved about that one especially was it hit so many different things, and the metaphor was always very clear. And it also just kind of hit kind of like classic story structure. Like you'd really hang your hats on the story beats.
Which
right.
I wonder where the metaphor falls with the end. I don't know if we want to talk about the very end, because it is kind of
I think we should give a spoiler warning and talk about the end, because it makes this big swing at the end.
It's a big swing.
Well, the swing is saying that the religion is correct, right? That you become like, the whole thing is, the whole ideology was that if you drink the blood of the last unicorn, you become handsome and you become holy and you become perfect, and the forest lives in peace. And finally, at the end, he gets gets swallowed by that monster, and then they are whole, and then he becomes man.
That's how I read it.
Which
I guess it could be that like man, it's either saying that like man is holy and that's like the perfect thing, or that it was just like an unattainable ideal that man created.
My assumption is it's some sort of like aiming high, as far as this being actually some kind of creation myth of the human race, because it is he doesn't become some kind of super bear like he thinks he's going to become. He becomes an upright hominid looking creature, and he goes off into the sunset, followed by all these ape creatures, which are sort of like a third faction in the background in the movie.
But it also absorbs the unicorn, and it absorbs the good brother. It kind of takes all of them. So is man ultimately, teddy bears fighting unicorns, but also fighting each other?
That was the only thing
I think it was a little pretentious for me to go there. And now this is where man comes from.
I liked it because it just felt like it was like making it an origin myth. It was kind of out of nowhere, but it was it felt like an end. It felt like a satisfying end, and at the end I didn't go like, oh, I wanted it to end some other way. I was just like, oh, great. It like found a way to kind of land the plane in a weird, bizarre way that fit the ethos of the two movies.
It is good it did something beyond just having literally every last speck of life dead by the end. That would that wouldn't really make for an interesting ending.
What a nice guy. Yeah. But I mean, I think where I like it being a creation myth, and I think and I like it when I don't think about it too hard, but when I think about it even just for a little bit, it does wind up kind of unraveling as this sort of like, again, maybe pretentious is the word, of man is born of war and man is born of destruction. So it's a very like nihilistic birth of mankind story, which I don't know. Yeah, like, okay. Okay, I don't know. It's a wild swing. It's a wild swing, but I don't know how deep it really is I don't know. Yeah. It feels like a wild idea he had at the end.
Well, that's a question too. Would all of this stuff we're talking about, from the, whatever you want to call it, social commentary or the commentary on war, and religion. It kind of depends on it being in this strange animated animal form, right? Like, would that all seem a little bit glib or like well-trod territory if it wasn't in this?
Yes.
If this was with people. But this is also so grim and wanting you to take it seriously too, that I almost feel like I have to engage with it on just that surface, that face value level. In which case, there is kind of stuff that we've kind of seen before, whether it's feuding brothers or the military-industrial complex. But maybe the point is that we're seeing it in this form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that's what made it unique. Is that it's at the end of the day, it's teddy bears and unicorns, but doing this apocalypse now.
It is hard to overlook that part. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if you're trying to sell this, you go, it's apocalypse now with teddy bears and unicorns.
Yeah, maybe it's doing.
I'm into it.
Yeah, maybe it's doing a kind of political cartoon, like simplification thing, like Mouse, the book Mouse. So it's it's boiling it all down to mice versus cats and things like that. Which
don't bring Mouse
I guess I don't know. I'm not saying it's as deep or well made as Mouse, of course, but it seems like that's what it's trying to do, or at least it feels like maybe he has to. I don't know. He wants to ruminate on war. He still wants to do it through this style, which is this compulsively depressive and like killing a cute puppy style. Because I do agree. If it was just humans, it would be boring. Which we said about Birdboy, it would be kind of I don't know. And I guess maybe it's beside the point to talk hypotheticals like that in this case, because it is what it is, of course.
Overall, I'd say it's worth a watch, though. I would, in the premise of your show, I would not unwatch it. I'd say it was worth an hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. Part of me kind of wants to, but I did watch it twice, so
really,
okay, we've got a convert here. Not only did he not unwatch it, he double watched it.
But
I didn't
only
think
because
you were that down on it, Mark.
No, I was, because especially the first time, I guess I felt a little bit like it wasn't worth all of the ugliness. It didn't actually have as much profound to say as it was tonally trying to put across. And I think I kind of resented it for that, as like not really knowing what to do with it. And I did feel, I did still kind of feel that this time that maybe it depends too much on that singular concept of the cute animals to make it interesting. Whereas, Birdboy had a lot of other stuff going on in it. But at the same time, this is not Meet the Feebles. This is not a thing where everything is just a kind of, sick, gross joke. So I can't really accuse it of being that either.
Mm-hmm. This felt more like the like Space Jam 2 of like French, Spanish, indie animation.
Right.
You're not the first person to say that about it, actually.
Yeah, people are
definitely not.
They've really said that.
So, all right, I think we've pretty much covered the ground here, and anybody listening can decide for themselves exactly what. Like, I think we've done a good job of describing. If this is something that sounds interesting to you, definitely watch it, because I literally have not seen anything like either of these movies outside of them.
If you're unwell, I think you'll really like these movies.
Yeah.
If you're sick in the head, I think you'll love it. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Yeah,
but also be careful if you're in a bad place. Maybe you want to wait till you have a little bit of perspective before you.
Sure.
Yeah, well, speaking of perspective, I would recommend seeing Birdboy first.
Sure.
If you're going to, because I think that was actually the one that made me like Unicorn Wars more. I think once it like actually gave me some framework, and I understood a little bit more that he is aiming for something larger. He does have like quite the vision here. And I do think Birdboy is just genuinely more of an enjoyable, like layered experience, where this is, I enjoy it I think it does reach kind of like an epic ending, like Zach touched on, he does have his Breaking Bad. Like he becomes the Bluey character becomes like Darth Vader or something by the end. He's this grotesque Dark Lord creature almost, which I appreciate. But yeah, it is a bummer. This one's even more of a bummer than Birdboy. So I could imagine someone being like, "Oh boy, I don't know if I'm going to sit through Birdboy after Unicorn Wars." So yeah.
Just depends how you like your little animals sliced up, one way or the other.
I thought it was brilliant. I'm an A. I like it. If the guy's listening, great job.
Yeah, and hey, this was just 2022, so it's not like he's gone a super long time without making anything. We'll probably get something else, I gotta say, I'll be curious to see what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
I am, for sure.
Yeah. But Zach, I'm so glad that this ended up working out, that you got so much out of these. Do you think, are we gonna see any influence from Alberto Vázquez in your upcoming animated?
It's all going to be if I'm tailoring it to you, it would be all bare penis.
All right.
I know that's what you remember from your flicks. So I will definitely tailor that. Happy to oblige.
I'll be sure to keep this going on the next 20 episodes, Mark. You'll never escape it.
All right. It's a whole genre unto itself. But Zach, thank you so much for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, this really was a blast, and I want to make sure I tell everybody to, first of all, check out Shrinking Season 2 or 3.
Season 2 will be coming out in October, and then Season 3 will come out in the future after that.
Oh, okay. All right. And also follow Zach on Twitter, because he is hilarious, and especially with the political recent events we've been referring to this whole time, it's a little bastion of comedic relief out there.
That's very kind. Thank you.
And everyone, out there, just be good to each other.
Beautiful message to go out on.
Thank you. And get your bear circumcised. Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchablespod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.